Our gospel reading for today is Matthew 5:38 through 48. This is the word of Jesus. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. Give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and on the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. This is the word of the Lord. God told Moses to tell the people that they should be holy because God is holy. Now, one definition of holy is that you are worthy of complete devotion as one perfect in goodness and righteousness. Wow. How are we going to live up to that? Jesus put it like this. Be perfect in how you treat others because your heavenly Father is perfect. How do you treat others then? Well, Jesus tells us. Be exceptionally generous in all kinds of dealings with others, from enemies to friends, from family to those in need. Be generous with your responses in difficult situations. Be generous in your resources when others ask for help. Be generous in your love for all people, even your enemies. In other words, be holy. Well, if we're going to follow the command of Moses and of Jesus, well, we've got some work to do. I don't think either of them have any sense that we can actually be God in perfection. But God is our model. God shows us the way. Well, there's a silver lining here too. The kind of ethical work that they are talking about can bring peace to your troubled soul. It can bring rest and refreshment to your weary bones as you slog through business and busyness and conflicts, situations, family matters. And when you put them all together, that can be a kind of a stressful life, can't it? Well, I want to lift up one of the commands that Moses gave because it embodies the most important way that we can follow through on obeying God's way. And the command is this. It was the last one that Jennifer read. Love your, and I want to put it positively, love your neighbor as yourself, rather than taking vengeance or bearing a grudge. Now, if you bear vengeance and you bear a grudge, you're making yourself feel worse because you are clinging to hostility, to anger, to resentment, and you are breeding alienation in your relationships. The opposite of that, love, however, makes you feel better because you're doing the moral thing, the caring thing, the healthy thing, and the forgiving thing that helps you be freed from that old detrimental negativity. And it helps promote being reconciled and having better, more positive, more loving relationships. So that raises a big question for us today. How do we love our neighbors, and exactly who are our neighbors? Well, I think the rest of Moses' commands sort of says it all. And I want to share these with you. And I would like to ask you or invite you to listen to each one and to pay particular attention to anyone that stands out to you. It might be one where you think, oh, I'm good at that. I'm strong in that ethical way to live. But then there might be another one that jumps out at you and you think, uh-oh, there's where I need to grow. And make a mental note to remember it. And then this week, reflect on it and see where you are with it and see how you can grow with it or strengthen it. All right, now, Moses, he got on a roll saying, don't. And I want to share what he said, but I want to put it in a more positive vein. I want to put what we do as opposed to what we don't do. So, and also, love your neighbor as yourself was at the bottom of his list, so I'm just going to start at the bottom and go up. So here's the first one. Love your family rather than hating them. Of course, we all say we love our family, but sometimes hate is there too, and difficulties. And it's interesting, do we ever think of our family as neighbors, our neighbors? Well, it might be kind of playful and helpful, you know. Love your neighbor as yourself, love your family as yourself. And don't take vengeance and don't hold grudges. And who are your neighbors? Maybe your neighbors are your family. That is, all people, or maybe your family, your neighbors. Here's the second one. There's 11 in all. The second one. Reprove or reprimand gently your neighbor rather than ignoring their harmful behavior. If your neighbor is your family member, we can see that easily, can't we? We don't just leave our family members to their own devices and not try to help. And sometimes help means a little bit of confrontation, but not a hateful confrontation, a loving confrontation. All right, here's number 3. Speak truth to your neighbors or your family, rather than slandering them or lying to them. You know what slander is? That's a legal concept. It's lying, certainly, but it's more than that. We can lie for many reasons, but in slander, a person tells falsehoods to a third party about someone, and the purpose of spreading the lies, which does things like generate gossip and other things, it's to harm and sometimes even destroy the reputation of a person very unfairly. That's why we have freedom of the press, for example, First Amendment, you know. We have to have the ability to speak truth. But if the press speaks lies, boom, they can be, anybody can sue a person or an institution for slander. right, now number 4. Help your neighbor or your family member or the stranger, rather than taking advantage of your neighbor's troubles, illness, or harm. Number 5. Judge your neighbor, family member, stranger, with justice rather than unjustly. Now we can really see that, can't we? And many times when we are judgmental, we're in a bad mood and somebody says something to us and we snap at them, or we gossip about them, or we listen to gossip about them, or just are not fair in our perceptions of others. What's the loving thing to do? Is it to give in to that? Or is it to say, wait a minute, I'm going to be self-critical here. I'm going to make a proper judgment. And sometimes if others want to have that negative judgmentalism, we have to stop and we have to say, wait a minute, I'm not going along with that. I can't control them, but I can sure try to follow God's ways here. Judge with justice, not unjustly. Number 6. Treat your neighbor impartially rather than deferring to the poor or favoring the rich. Well, we treat everybody just alike with the same love and respect. Just because somebody's wealthy doesn't mean we treat them better than we treat others. Or if we're dedicated to working with the poor, same thing. You don't trash somebody who's not poor because they're not poor. We treat everybody just alike with love and respect. And now we've seen that. I've heard this all of my career. I haven't tended to see it so much, but I've certainly heard about it. Somebody in the church is really wealthy, and everybody knows they give a lot of money. So, don't make that person mad, or they'll stop the giving, turn off the spigot. Well, that's not the way we treat people, is it? It's like almost blackmail. Now, here's an important one too. Number 7. Care for your neighbors, family members, strangers who have disabilities or difficulties in life, rather than criticizing them in an abusive or angrily insulting manner. And that is one that, I don't know, it's like you read it and you think, well, of course. But then again, actions speak louder than words. Sometimes it's really hard to care for those in need and takes a little sacrificial thinking. And now number 8. Fear God rather than allowing your baser nature to rule your behavior toward neighbors, family members, the stranger. And if you don't fear God, you're not going to put yourself in a position of letting God be the model for your ethical living. You're not going to listen to Moses' words, and you're certainly not going to listen to Jesus' words. You're just going to allow what Paul called the flesh, those baser instincts to just take over. And then you just let your anger problem go wild, or whatever it is. Number 9. Be honest with your neighbors rather than defrauding them or stealing from them. And defrauding is kind of a way of stealing. It's illegally obtaining money through deception. Be honest with neighbors, family members, the stranger. Number 10. Now it gets kind of into the business realm more. It's already started getting into the business realm. Pay your neighbors who are laborers or employees in a timely way rather than delaying in giving them their wage. Now I was talking to Zeke the other day, and he told me about these two companies who control other businesses that he's had to deal with. And he said these two companies, remember that? These two big companies would sometimes withhold payment for service for 6 months, which of course hurts everybody. And he in fact cited one rather large company that was forced out of business because of that unethical practice. And of course, when you're looking at those who are really struggling to put food on the table, then waiting overnight can make a difference. I've got relatives who used to work in certain kinds of jobs that were kind of on the bottom rung, and I remember complaints that, oh, they didn't pay me what I was owed. Very common. My son, in his legal practice, specializes in employment law on the side of the worker. You can't do the worker and management. There's got to be like a big wall between the two. It just doesn't work. And they focus on the worker, and it's been an education for me to know how many unethical and sometimes illegal practices that especially the poorer workers have to deal with just all the time. It's amazing. And so what I'd like to see in this country is more of a dialogue between business and ethics. That's a really important issue. It always is. I mean, it's nothing special about this time. It's just like ethics in other areas of life. All right, number 11. Be generous with your neighbors who are poor and who are aliens. Can we consider that as refugees today? From other countries. You can love your neighbor as God commands in all these ways that Moses listed. So which one stood out to you? Remember them. Work on them. Become more holy, more worthy. Grow toward perfection. Understanding, of course, that that's a very high ideal that we never reach. And then, best of all, as you grow, even being in the process of growing in these ways, will help you find the peace, the rest, the renewal that you need for living your busy, contemporary